Down once more to the dungeon of my black despair. Down we plunge to the prison of my mind. Down that path into darkness deep as hell. You're welcome.
I love it. You committed to the hell, and I'm here for it.
I tried to commit to the hell as much as I could, knowing that my roommate is sitting in the next room being like, what is happening? Welcome to Your Pick, a film podcast. I'm Geneva.
And I'm Tatum.
We are two friends who love movies and love sharing them with each other. Each week, we take turns picking a film that is close to our hearts and talk about why it moves us, to tears, to laughter, and everything in between. We celebrate the craft of filmmaking, as well as the unique and personal ways we find meaning in the movies we watch. Welcome back, Tatum. Another lovely episode. How is everything with you?
I'm feeling better now that we just talked for an hour and a half before recording.
That's good. I am too. I got home from work and I had a headache, and then I took an ibuprofen and I feel much better.
I came home and read a lot of emails from work.
Oh boy.
Got very stressed out, and then talked to Geneva, and it was great.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to share what you've been watching recently, if anything?
Actually, yeah, I did get the chance to watch a few things this past week.
Ooh.
So I watched the newest season of Queer Eye, which is always a great show to just kind of put on when you are feeling down and you just want some like sweet, comforting vibes. So I don't think that Queer Eye kind of goes through phases with me. I think some seasons are better than others.
How many seasons are there in total?
I believe this is season 8. Season 7 I thought was one of the strongest they'd had in a while. Season 8 was not the best. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just, I don't know. It wasn't as engaging to me as other seasons have been, but still great. The Fab Five are always fun to watch. It makes me kind of sad. I feel like Jonathan Van Ness has gotten more tame as he's gotten older, as we all do as we age. But I'm like, oh man, I miss when he was just like running around screaming all the time. But yeah, so I watched season 8 of Queer Eye, just kind of had it on, and it was a good time. I also rewatched the Hulu Christmas movie called Happiest Season. This movie is a vibe, and I love it. It is not original, and it is cheesy, and it is a not original cheesy Christmas movie. But
this is the one with the like Kristen Stewart, isn't it, right?
Yeah, it's Kristen Stewart and Mackenzie Davis. And I really love this movie. It's just such a fun time, and it just made
I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah, I think you would like it. I mean, it's like, you know what it is before you even watch it.
Yeah,
you know?
It's a rom-com, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Christmas. Yeah, so it's like, if you know what you're getting into, it will deliver. It's a fun time. It's got drama. It's got love. It's got family affairs. It's got everything. But yeah, so I rewatched Happiest Season. I liked it a lot. And then also I rewatched All of Us Strangers. I went to go see it in the theater for a second and most likely final time, because I would be shocked if this movie ever comes back to cinemas. Yeah. It broke me the second time as well. It broke me in different ways because I observed new things and different things and approached it from different angles. I will say, I feel like back when we did our Oscar nomination reaction episode, I did not give enough credit to Paul Mescal's performance, because let's just say that the movie, there's things that you don't know about his character until you get to the end. And so watching it a second time, knowing the things that I knew about him after having finished it, and seeing that come through from the beginning. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but like now.
Sure. Yeah. Like you're picking up on little nuances of the performance that you wouldn't have known to watch for.
Yeah. Okay. So that being said, his performance is incredible. All of the performances in that movie are so very strong. And I remember I struggled initially with, is this movie my number one film of 2023, or is it Across the Spider-Verse? But after watching it a second time, this is absolutely my number one film of 2023. It is incredible. It is a movie that I will probably revisit it every couple years or so. I don't think I'll be able to watch it more often than that because it's very heart-wrenching and hard to watch and not even watch. It's hard to just feel all of the feels that it makes you feel in such a short amount of time. But it's such a strong film. So yeah, I saw that again in theaters, and that was my week of watching stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
I only have one thing to report because it's been kind of a busy week for me. I watched Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Yeah, I
from
saw that.
2022. Yeah, which I really enjoyed. I don't think it's... there were certain things about it that I kind of wished had gone a little bit further. Just like I wish the satire had been a little bit more forefront. A lot of it is much more thriller / horror. But when I started to get the sense of where it was going, especially, I really vibed with it.
How long did it take for you to predict the ending?
The ending as in
who killed, like...
Okay.
Yeah. Or did you not know it until the
end? I
think
pretty much... I definitely didn't have a strong, I definitely think this is going to be what happened.
Okay.
But it did occur to me probably I don't know, halfway through or so. And then once it started to become clear kind of the direction the story was heading, that the final reveal is a perfect capper.
It's a great reveal. Yeah.
It's a really good one. Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I would definitely recommend it if you're interested in, if you like a thriller, if you like a sort of, semi-comedic, but also kind of genuinely scary and emotional at certain points. I think the performances are all really strong. Rachel Sennett I can be a little bit up and down on sometimes, but I think she's really, really funny in this. And Pete Davidson, he's really funny too. He's really good.
Only thing I've ever seen him in that I've actually liked him. Everything else I'm I don't get this. But this movie works.
Yeah. And Lee Pace, just amazing.
Oh my gosh,
perfect
so
casting.
good.
So good. So, yeah. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Really good movie.
How did you watch it?
It is on Canopy, which is the library streaming app, which I recommended before, and I will recommend again. They have a lot of newer indie movies, which is really, really cool. They have that movie that you recommended a couple months ago, The Quiet Girl.
That's also on
so
Hulu.
That's on my... Oh, cool.
That's how I watched it.
That's nice. So that's on my watch list. And they've got
watch it. It's such a good movie. Yeah. Also, just because I forgot, but I remembered when I asked you, Happiest Season streaming on Hulu, Queer Eye streaming on Netflix, and All of Us Strangers I saw in theaters. I would love for it to be streaming somewhere eventually, but
I'm sure it eventually will. Where do you think it's going to go?
Is it a Neon film? I think it's Neon, right?
Yeah. So would that be Amazon Prime?
Potentially,
I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like Neon films either go to Prime or Hulu.
Okay. Yeah,
it's definitely not going to Netflix. And I don't see it going to Max either. I feel like it would be Hulu or Prime. Probably Prime.
Okay.
Either way. I just hope it doesn't go to Paramount Plus or something, because...
Oh, yes, not something that...
I'm not getting on that train.
Just go to something that we actually subscribe to.
Yeah.
All right. So let us move on. So full disclosure, like I said, this has been kind of a busy week for me, and writing the introduction is basically just
Geneva.
Yes.
I am looking at your research on this document. This was nominated for Oscars.
I know.
Best cinematography? I'm sorry. I must look up the other nominees this year. Anyway, continue. But
anyway,
I am
thank
shook.
you. Yes, we will get there. We will get there. But yeah, the some surprises. Anyway, all I was going to say was that basically I did this entire introduction and all this research in like a half an hour before we started recording. It is basically just the Wikipedia page for this.
Hey, how many times have I done
full
that?
disclosure, I was particularly lazy this week. I will cite my sources. Wikipedia.
Well, at least you were just lazy this week. I'm lazy every week because every week well, it's just Wikipedia.
I'm usually pretty lazy, but I was lazier than usual this week. All right. Anyway, so yes, as you may have realized from the title of this episode, today on the show we are discussing The Phantom of the Opera, the 2004 film adaptation.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yes, the 2004 film adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's 1986 musical, based on the 1910 book by Gaston Leroux. The film is directed by Joel Schumacher and stars Gerard Butler, Emmy Rossum, and Patrick Wilson. So, a little background on this film. There was a really long development time. It took a really long time for this film to actually get made. The stage musical, when it first came out, was a massive hit. Broadway people will know that it eventually became the longest running Broadway show of all time. I think it just closed within the last year or two. As early as 1989, so just a few years after it premiered, Warner Brothers made a deal with Andrew Lloyd Webber to produce a film adaptation, with Webber actually receiving a huge amount of artistic control. Webber then recruited Joel Schumacher to direct the film, and the plan at the time was to use the original cast members, Michael Crawford and Sarah Brightman, to star.
Why did they not do that? Why?
Well, there were various reasons, one of them being Andrew Lloyd Webber was married to Sarah Brightman, and then they got divorced.
Okay.
So, there were various things that happened, but start date kept getting pushed back. Basically, it kind of moved into a development hell, Throughout the 1990s, there were some more attempts to make the movie. Apparently, John Travolta and Antonio Banderas were both considered for the role of the Phantom.
What was this? Who was the casting director for this movie? I'm looking this up.
I believe Antonio Banderas actually did play the role on stage. There is there's a clip of him performing with Sarah Brightman at some sort of event.
Was he singing though, or was it just theater without?
Oh yeah,
he was singing.
He was singing, yeah. They're singing Music of the Night together, I think, or no, maybe they're singing Phantom of the Opera. I don't remember. I wouldn't say he has the greatest voice in the world, but it probably would have been an improvement over what we got.
Oh, man.
Not to spoil my thoughts on this film. Anyway, all that is to say, so the film finally got off the ground in 2003 when Webber's production company bought back the rights from Warner Brothers. Webber himself actually put up about $6 million toward the film. So this is a very personal film for him. The movie was shot at Pinewood Studios in England, with the opera house and chandelier being created through a combination of sets, scale models, and CGI. A lot of the costumes and production design elements are based on real historical references and portraits from artists like Edgar Degas, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, and John Singer Sargent. I actually do want to point out a couple of some of the more obvious references that I've picked up on over the years, because I actually think it's kind of cool, some of the things that they do. Anyway, so in terms of casting, the big part of this film, apparently Katie Holmes and Anne Hathaway were both considered to play Christine before they settled on Emmy Rossum. Emmy Rossum, apparently, I only just learned this, she got her start as a performer by singing with the Metropolitan Opera's children's chorus. She was 7 years old and she was recruited to the Metropolitan Opera.
Wow.
So, not too shabby.
Is she a Nepo baby?
She was definitely a child of privilege. I didn't look to see whether she had parents in the industry specifically.
Okay.
But, yeah. Patrick Wilson, by this time, was already a 2-time Tony Award nominee for his performances in Oklahoma and the film Monty. Gerard Butler, on the other hand, had no prior singing experience when he was cast. Apparently, he was chosen after Joel Schumacher liked his performance in Dracula 2000. And this little tidbit I thought was pretty interesting. Apparently, a couple years ago, 2021, in an interview, Andrew Lloyd Webber said that he thought Butler was miscast as the Phantom. But the reason that he gave was the Phantom was too young. And the whole point of the Phantom is that he needs to be quite a bit older than Christine. For the record, when this film came out, Gerard Butler was 35 years old and Emmy Rossum was 18. So
What?
I don't know what he was talking about.
I have so
I just thought that really thought that was really funny.
I have so many thoughts. Okay, so can I just read real quick? So I
Yes,
looked
please.
up the casting director for this movie, and his name is David Grindrod. Grindrod? I don't know.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I really want to know your thoughts on this. So he apparently was the casting director for Mamma Mia and was the musical casting director for the live adaptation or the live remake of Beauty and the Beast and the live remake of Mary Poppins Returns and Aladdin, the remake, and Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, and
All right.
Greatest Days, which I have not seen.
I have no idea.
But I'm
what that
like,
is.
I don't know how much I trust this person.
I was like, there's at least some of these films. There is a clear thorough line of let's cast people who can't sing.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
Not all of these films. Some of them are cast very well. Some of them not so much.
interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
How did he get that specific job of casting for musicals is what I would like to know.
I don't know.
I guess to be fair, we can't put Gerard Butler on him because Joel Schumacher was the one who was, at least according to Wikipedia, the source of all knowledge.
Well, according to Michael Scott, you know that you're getting the best possible information by looking at Wikipedia because anyone can put anything on there.
That's right.
So you know you're getting,
So,
getting the best
I don't want to slander Mr. Grindrod or whatever his name is.
if anything, I'm like, who's the
but-
producer? Like, the producer
Yeah.
should have been like, hey, this, bad idea.
Yeah. The producer, as it turns out, Andrew Lloyd Webber. So I don't know what that means.
Although, arguably, you could say that
Yeah.
if without Gerard Butler's performance and casting in this movie very well could have just been forgotten. He might
That
be
is
the
true.
reason why
We are
this movie is
still
remembered.
talking about it. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Oh wait, can I also say I find it
please.
very interesting. I was looking at just like our podcast lineup, and I was like, so we've done 2 Charlize Theron movies very close together. We've done 2 Patrick Stewart movies very close together. We've done 2 desert movies very close together. We need to diversify a little bit.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Patrick Wilson, because he was in Young Adults.
Oh, sorry, I didn't say
and-
Patrick Wilson. I said Patrick Stewart. My bad.
Yeah, it threw me off for a second, but yeah, no, you're totally right. That's really interesting.
We're doubling up a lot here.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we're gonna go back to the 50s, I think, with one of my next picks, and I don't know where we're going with your next one, but
Avatar: The Way of Water.
we're going to another planet.
Different species.
Different species. That's right.
Until the white people come and take over.
I would love to see Charlize Theron play a Na'vi in a future Avatar movie, though. That would rule.
Yeah, I
She
mean,
could
we've
do it.
already got Sigourney Weaver, though. You know.
Do they fill a similar niche?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway,
What if we got Gerard Butler?
okay. Honestly, it probably would be better than Sam Worthington. So actually, no, it would be
You know-
worse. Both of them are bad. Gerard Butler's accent in this movie, it's like sometimes he sounds Scottish, sometimes he doesn't. I'm like, what are?
He should have just gone
How
full
are
Scottish.
you
Why
talking?
not?
Like, I don't understand.
I don't understand. I mean, he's singing most of the time.
True.
That's not better.
No.
Anyway. All right. Yes. So Phantom of the Opera. So this is one of those movies that it's like, I don't like it. Parts of it I hate. But it is also so incredibly formative to me in certain ways. I realized while watching this movie that this movie is one of the touchstones for why I have such strong feelings about how musicals should be directed and what good musical direction looks like. Because this movie, I have seen this movie so many times. I find it incredibly watchable. It's really fun. There are also parts of it that infuriate me, but there are also parts that are really good, I think. There are things that look gorgeous about it. There are performances in it that I really like. And so it's one of those things where it's like, the thing is like just enough there that you're intrigued, but there's just enough wrong that you want to dive into it and figure out why it's wrong, you know? And so I just keep coming back to it. And yeah, like there are specific scenes in this movie where every single time I watch it, I'm like, why would you direct it that way? Why would you cut it that way? Why are you not focusing on her face? Why are you moving off somewhere else? What are you doing? And it infuriates me. And yet I just keep watching it. Anyway, so I was like, I was a young teen when this movie came out. I guess I must have been like 12 or so. I didn't see it in theaters, but I do remember that my family for some reason bought the soundtrack, and I listened to the soundtrack a lot when it first came out. Yes, this was my first exposure to Phantom of the Opera.
Boy.
I had not imbibed the musical in any other form. Later on, I would go and watch the incredible Royal Albert Hall performance starring Ramin Karimloo and Sierra Boggess, which is like professionally recorded. I don't know if it's available anywhere, but it was for a while. Could be streamed for free on Prime, and I highly recommend watching that. That is very much how this musical should be performed, and it kind of filled in all these gaps where I was like, oh, that's why people love this. That's what the character of Christine is supposed to be doing. Like, I understand now. But I can't hate this movie because it's just like, the Andrew Lloyd Webber music, it does slap.
Yep.
It's really good.
Yep.
Some of the performances are really good. It looks gorgeous. And yeah, I don't know. I just have such a strong relationship to this movie. I remember I read the Gaston Leroux novel back in high school just for funsies. Probably because I was listening to the soundtrack all the time. Strange novel. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but there's a lot of differences. But yeah. Phantom of the Opera. I don't know. What's your relationship to the musical in general, and then also this movie?
Yeah. So when I saw that Geneva put this on the list to talk about, I told her from the get-go, because her and I have reached a place where we kind of like to let each other know a little bit of how we feel about the movie before we commit to doing an episode on it. And I told her, I was like, Geneva, I'm going to have nothing positive to say about this movie. And if you're okay with that, then let's do it. So I had seen this movie once before when I was young. I don't think it was right when it first came out, but my sister was very much so into musical theater at the time. And so I think because of that, she found out about the movie and then she put it on and we watched it. And I definitely was, I don't know if I was a preteen or a teenager or whatever. I don't remember, but I was old enough to recognize this is terrible. I
love having that formative first movie where it's maybe this wasn't your first necessarily, but those early movies where your brain is just developing. You're like, oh, not all movies are good.
Yeah.
Some movies are bad.
And it wasn't just this movie's terrible. It also was oh, this performance is bad. This is bad casting. This singing is not good. So that was my relationship with this movie. I had not watched it since. Aside from this movie, though, I'm very familiar with the show. I haven't read the book. I have not seen it performed personally, in person, but I'm very familiar with the soundtrack. I'm familiar with the story. My roommate in college, my sophomore year, she went through a phase for a whole term of school where all she did was listen to Phantom of the Opera. And so I would come home.
We've all been there. It's a phase all of us must go through.
She was the best roommate I had in college. We vibed. It was great. And so I would come home and she'd be playing Phantom of the Opera. And I was like, really? Again? And she was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, don't be sorry. This is amazing. I'm just completely impressed by your commitment to how often you listen to this. Because she wasn't just listening in her headphones. She had speakers and she was blasting Phantom of the Opera.
Was she blasting this movie soundtrack or another?
No.
Okay.
If she was, I would not have been as
she
tolerant.
had taste.
Yes, very, very cool person. But she, shout out to her if she ever listens to this. I know your name, but I won't say it for privacy. But anyway, yeah. So I was very familiar with just the soundtrack and the story and everything, and I love the music. Like you said, the music that Andrew Lloyd Webber has created for this story is, I mean, it's some of the best in musical theater, which is why it ran for so long. You know, it's recognized as such for a reason. It deserves it. So yeah, going into this movie again, I was like, oh my God, this is 2.5 hours. I know that this is just not good and I'm not looking forward to it, but blah, blah. So I watched it yesterday. I love this movie. This is incredible. I love it so much. I had such a good time.
Right?
I had such a good time. I thought that this was going to feel like the longest movie I've ever watched. It felt like it was 20 minutes. It ended. I was like, wait, it's over? How has the time passed? I've had the best time of my life watching this for the last 2.5 hours. I absolutely loved it. I have a lot of issues with lots of different aspects of this movie. Aside from the casting of Gerard Butler, which
we will talk about,
it literally is unfathomable to me. Like, I have no understanding as to why he was cast in this role. None whatsoever. Other people, I feel like there's other people in this movie where it's like, you're not really a good singer, but your vibe fits the role that you're playing, so I can excuse it, kind of. Whereas Gerard Butler, I'm like, this makes no sense. But aside from him, but like, it's so bad, it's just hilarious. Aside from him, the other thing that I was like angry about but loved how bad it was me as someone who is a huge nerd about, you know, sword play and sword fights. The scene in the graveyard, or whatever you call it, between the Phantom and Raoul when they are sword fighting is the worst editing I've ever seen in my life. We can't see anything that's going on because clearly the choreography sucked, so we're just cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting away, so we don't actually see anything until it's over, and it's like, so who won? Like, I didn't like, what happened? Like, I hated how that was edited. And I also realized by the time it was over, actually throughout the movie, I was like, you know, I'm familiar with the story of this movie, or just the story in general, and yet watching this, I do not understand what's happening. Like, I don't understand, what are these people's motivations for doing, like, I know the motivations for these people because of other contexts, but watching this, I completely don't know what's going. I'm like, I'm so confused. I shouldn't be this confused because I should know what's happening, but none of this makes sense. So yeah, I loved this movie. I feel like it's something that I would love to watch once a year. It's a really good time. And I'm really glad you made me watch this again.
So glad.
I had so much
glad
fun.
That's your reaction.
I had so much fun.
It is so much fun. It is so much fun. There's like, I don't know, like I said, the combination of how like bad it is, but it's like bad in a really campy, energetic way. I mean, I think this is kind of the Joel Schumacher thing. I've not seen a massive amount of like Joel Schumacher movies, but this is the impression that I get from the things that I have seen, is that he's just, you know, kind of a guy who has very specific ideas about what things should look like, and he's very energetic, if nothing else. There's a lot of editing. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's like, definitely a huge element of camp.
It felt like he was trying to do Moulin Rouge, and I was like, it's you're falling way short of Moulin Rouge. I'm sorry. Like I mean, there's certain choreographies that felt like, oh, you're trying to do Roxanne from Moulin Rouge, and this is not working. Or the mask. When I was watching the Masquerade, I was like, what is this choreography? Like, I don't. Some of the choreography,
they're all voguing. Like, but that's what the choreography is.
But it's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah. I love how many like musical numbers are just staged with like people walking through the backstage of the opera, and it's just like absolutely teeming with all of these like stage hands and laundry women and random guys who decide to moon the diva, and like there's just so much going on in every single like frame of this movie. You know, you're never bored. There's always something to look at.
That's the thing. I was never bored. I thought it was going to feel like this movie would take forever, but I was never bored, so it went by so quickly.
Yeah. There's so many ideas going on. They're not all good ideas.
Too many ideas.
But they're ideas.
Too many ideas.
Too many ideas, one might say. Yeah. Oh, man. Anyway, in terms of how to like structure this conversation, and we're already kind of in it, but I figured we could kind of like talk through our thoughts about the movie overall, especially the performances. And then I did kind of want to hit on at least the major musical moments, not necessarily go through the plot like bit by bit, but like at least the kind of the major songs, and just kind of talk about our thoughts on those. Because I feel like, I don't know, I have a lot of thoughts. I've seen this movie so many times.
Well, you will definitely have more thoughts than I will.
Probably. So why don't we start talking about the performances? And I actually want to start with kind of my biggest revelation about the movie this time around. I mean, this is always something I've always kind of thought. I just it kind of crystallized to me on this viewing, and this might be a controversial statement, but I think that the worst performance in this movie, or at least the performance that to me is most disastrous to this movie, is not actually Gerard Butler, as bad as he is, to be clear. It's actually Emmy Rossum. And I say that like not putting the blame on her necessarily, because she was like 17 years old when she filmed this movie. She was so young. But I think she was not directed very well. And she takes Christine, which is a character who I think could be difficult to perform at the best of times, because she's basically just a wide-eyed ingenue who's the object of affection of multiple men and just kind of exists to be beautiful and perfect.
Yeah.
That's a hard character to play. This is a 17-year-old girl who is, you know, very beautiful and talented, but needs someone who can direct her to actually thinking about things like motivation and expressing ideas and emotions through music.
Well, that's what I meant when I was saying I was so confused why people were doing things in this movie, because I was watching it and I was like, why is she doing anything that she's doing?
Yes.
And I was like, well, I know how the story works, so like I know what her motivations are. But in the context of this movie, I'm like, you're just showing up places and then saying things that you're supposed to say, but I don't understand. Because I was like, wait, so are you there because you think he's your father? Are you there because you love him? Are you there because you're confused? Like, I don't, what, why? I don't understand.
She will tell Raoul, like, I don't like him. I'm frightened. I don't want to do this. And then the instant she's near the Phantom, she's just like, nope, I've dropped everything. I'm in love with you now. And it's like, when you see the musical on stage, or, you know, if you watch a film performance like the Royal Albert one, a good Christine can bring across all of these conflicting emotions and make it feel really believable. Like, I rewatched some of Sierra Boggess's performances, and there's so much going on her face at any given moment. You know, you can feel the conflict of, oh, this thing is really frightening to me and I genuinely feel like I'm being oppressed by it, but at the same time it's allowing me access to, you know, levels of musical talent I didn't know before, and that's why it's so alluring. And like, there's all this stuff going on. But with this Emmy Rossum's Christine, there is nothing. She is so glassy-eyed this entire film. And there are so many moments where her lips are barely moving. There's just nothing going on her face when this, you know, this beautiful, like, kind of weak, but I mean, I who am I to judge? I couldn't sing like that. I don't think she's I don't think she has the greatest voice in the movie, if I'm being honest, but I'm also like, it's fine. Yeah.
I don't think
but there's
she
no
sings
expression.
any worse than Anne Hathaway, to be honest.
Well, Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disagree there.
Anne Hathaway won an Oscar, so.
But anyway, yeah, all that is to say is that there's just nothing going
That just threw
on.
a lot of shade at Anne Hathaway. Sorry.
We love Anne Hathaway.
We love
to
Anne
be clear.
Hathaway.
Yeah,
and her performance in that movie is good.
It is very good. Yes. Honestly, when you're listing off that list of musicals that guy cast, I'm so sure that Les Mis was going to be one of them.
I know, right?
Kind of would have fit the theme.
Russell Crowe.
Anyway, all that is to say, this is just my little mini rant. Is like, I really
Butler
think
and Russell Crowe should do a sing off.
Oh my gosh! And they can pull Pierce Brosnan in too.
Yes.
Because this is the thing. Is like, I'm sorry, this is a mini tangent. Russell Crowe can sing. He just can't sing that style of music. Gerard Butler, I think. He can carry a tune. His voice is not built for that style of music, and his performance does not match what the Phantom should be. But Pierce Brosnan is just like, he cannot sing anything. I'm sorry. Mini rant over.
Can he flip a cape? If he can flip a cape, then he could play the Phantom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's like 90% of the good parts of Gerard Butler's performance in this. He just whips his
looks
cape
great
around.
in a tuxedo. That's all
He
that
just
matters.
whips his cape and disappears.
Yeah. Where was I? Oh, yes. Yeah, so rewatching the movie, what I realized is I really think Christine is, as the musical is structured, the protagonist and the focal point emotionally to this story. And the direction just actively at every moment does not allow us any interiority with her. We're not experiencing the Phantom as she's experiencing it. We're not, just simple, like, basic directing musical 101 things, like when she's singing a higher or more intense note, like maybe build the rhythms around what she's singing, or do a close-up on her face, or do a wide shot to kind of, build the sense of kind of the enormity of what she's singing. And instead it's like, oh, she's singing this high intense note, let's cut to like a candle. Let's cut to like the back of her face. So, like, it's so bad, and it just does not completely alienates you from who Christine is as a person, or how she is experiencing the story. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but I don't think that, and I don't think that you're necessarily saying this, but I really don't put the blame on Emmy Rossum, because I feel like what we're seeing here with her is also what I was seeing with so many of the other characters in this movie, like Madame Geary, or however you say her name. I'm like, I don't understand why was the Phantom in this cage in the first place? Why did you have this bond with him and then hide him in a basement? Why did you lock him? Why are you now returning back to this place in 1919 to look at this monkey?
Oh my gosh, we need to talk about that stupid framing
I'm just
device.
like, I don't understand why she does what she does, and I don't think she understands what it's like. Things are just happening because they're happening. So I don't think it's necessarily Emmy Rossum's performance. I don't think it's anyone's performance other than Gerard Butler's performance, which is just bad. Because I feel like out of all of the characters here, the Phantom had something to work with. Like, he was a kid who had a traumatic backstory, and he's been locked underground. Like, he had so much to work with and could not even rise to the occasion. Whereas everyone else, it's like, you have nothing to work with. And I don't hate what you're doing. So
what I really feel like is this movie kind of falls into the trap of people who have only kind of half seen the Phantom musical and have an idea of like, oh, it's about this sexy Phantom with a mask and then the beautiful ingenue, and that's it. And if you actually watch a performance of the Phantom of the Opera, the Phantom is like a reclusive weirdo who's kind of, he's childlike, he's volatile, he's very, he's
impulsive.
Socially awkward, he's impulsive, like, he's not this sort of like, the hero that you would find on the cover of a romantic novel. He's not like that. He is something more interesting and idiosyncratic. And that's what makes his story so compelling. And that's what makes the the choice that Christine, the conflict that she feels about, I'm drawn to certain parts of this person, but also he's very off-putting. And the choice that she makes at the end to feel compassion toward this person who is clearly a pathetic character. Like, there's incel vibes there, to be honest. But this movie is just like, no, we just want a poster of a sexy guy in a mask. And that's all the thought that's put into the characterization. Everything is made to make him look just the most sort of smooth and seductive and sexy as possible, and that removes all of the interest from their relationship.
Does he come across as sexy to you?
Teenage me thought he was very sexy.
Okay.
I gotta be honest.
I'm like, any sort of sexy vibes that I would feel towards him, which I basically have none, but even if I did, it kind of goes out the window once he locks a girl in the underground in a dungeon. And then tells her to touch him. I'm like, okay, not sexy at all anymore.
Teenage me was not thinking about it in those terms.
I really like the music of the song, The Music of the Night, but it's actually really creepy and horrifying, that song.
Oh yeah.
It's really gross.
Yeah. Well, and I sent you the Royal Albert performance to rewatch, which you'd already seen, but rewatching it myself, I was so struck by, again, the conflict and the sort of layers of nuance in the way that they interact with each other, where he keeps drawing her in, but then every time she actually tries to get close with him, he keeps pushing her away or pulling himself away. And, he can't bear for her to be focused on anything but him, but at the same time, he can't bear to be looked at, It's so different than this, where it's just her standing like this doll who has no thoughts in her head, and he's just kind of walking around, and that's it,
Yeah, she doesn't even look like a doll. She looks like a ghost, like she's about to evaporate into thin air because everything around her is floating and
yeah.
What is happening?
And there's that creepy moment where he reveals the mannequin of her wearing a wedding dress, and she just sort of falls, and I'm like, what is happening?
And then you see the monkey.
Oh my gosh, the monkey.
The monkey.
Yeah. So what other things can we say about Gerard Butler's performance?
He just should not have been cast in this movie.
No.
Because the things that I know about Gerard Butler, he's a fine actor, but the way that he talks is very specific. The way that his face, everybody's face moves differently when they speak. Mm-hmm. The specific way that his face moves when he speaks is the way that his jaw and his lips move when he speaks is very distinct to him. And I feel like having this mask covering his face and highlighting his lips and how they
barely
move,
covering his face.
It's just I will. Okay. So when we get to the end of this episode and we're going through critics reviews and stuff, I want to read some of my favorite Letterboxd reviews, because there were some really, really great ones, but I'll do that later. But there's one in particular that I'll say now, because this is what I was thinking, and then I read this and I was like 100%. So this Letterboxd review, it's written by Anika, and they say, every single person who worked on this movie had bills to pay. And that is my vibe with everyone in this movie, but especially Gerard Butler. He had bills to pay. Yeah. So he just took the role.
Yeah, he's trying his best. I have to say that for him. He's doing what he can. He should not have been cast. He put in he put in a great effort. I no beef with him personally. It's just that he shouldn't have been cast. He just was not right.
Happens, though. We've talked about other movies on this podcast before where it's it's not that you're a bad actor. You were just horribly cast in this movie.
Yep.
No disrespect for you. You just shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can we also just take a moment and again with they're trying to sort of smooth out all of the wrinkles in the Phantom and just make him this sort of sexy woman's fantasy creature thing, which does not work, is the decision to turn his this horrible disfiguration that has ruined his life and left him incapable of holding any sort of normal relationship. It's now changed to like, he's got kind of a rash on like part of his face, but also the mask he wears is so tiny compared to, you know, masks that are worn in other performances. And especially when he shows up in that red outfit and like gives them the opera, and it's so, the mask he wears is so tiny, and it's clear his head is fine. And it's just I cannot help but laugh every single time Christine pulls the mask off and he's like, look at my horrible scars, and it's like, put a little moisturizer on it, it's fine.
It's like an insult, you know, to burn victims. It's like, you don't,
it is
like, you don't look disgusting, you just look like someone who has been burned.
Like, you're not was in an accident. Like, I'm sorry, but like,
I'm not repulsed by you, you know?
No.
Like, there's someone out there, there's probably lots of people out there that would love to, you know, be intimate with you in some way, shape, or form. Like, you know, the odds are not against you in ways that you think you are. But that's when it's like, you know, they do tap into a little bit towards the end of like, you know, it's not your face that's ugly, it's your soul. And then it's like, well, maybe if you hadn't been locked down here for so long, maybe you're the victim, which like he honestly straight up is.
Sure.
Which does not excuse his abusive behavior, because he's also a kidnapper and potentially a rapist, you know, as well.
Hurt people.
Exactly. But yeah, it's, man, the decisions that this movie makes. I just felt like the emotional stakes of the last scene, or one of the last scenes, when, you know, Raoul's basically, when the Phantom's like, choose me or him, your love or your life, like, you know, that whole scene, I'm just like, these stakes, I don't care about anything, because, you know, Christine's just flitting from one side to the next. She's like, oh no, I'll stay with you. No, wait a minute, I love him, so I'll go with him. Wait, no, I'll stay here. Wait, no, now I have pity for you. Wait, no. I'm like, girl, you're flip-flopping all over the place, and not in a way that's interesting. It doesn't feel like you're conflicted internally and you're struggling. It just feels like you don't know what to think, and so you're just like saying all the different possibilities of ways that you can approach the situation.
Yeah, I mean, this is really so much like what I was saying. The problem with the characterization of Christine in this movie for me is just like, you really just get the sense of her as being the person who listens to whoever has been talking to her the most recently, you know?
Yep.
Like, she has no thought for herself. And you kind of see that play out in the final scene. Plus, like, I mean, we should talk about Patrick Wilson's performance too. Patrick Wilson, an actor I adore, who has a gorgeous voice, and I always really enjoy when he shows up in things. But he's so bland in this movie. And again, like with all these performances, I don't necessarily blame him. I don't think he was given much to work with. He's working off of Emmy Rossum, who's also not giving a very good performance. I don't believe their chemistry with each other.
They have zero chemistry. They have zero chemistry.
They have zero chemistry. His hairstyle is so terrible. And it's just, so like you say, we get to the final confrontation, and, you know, you should be feeling Christine pulled in multiple directions, and you just don't. She's just kind of standing on the sidelines being like, oh no, what's going to happen? You know?
Yep. I mean, that's literally what she's doing. So, like, quite literally, that's what she's doing. She's like, someone make the decision for me, because I cannot.
Yeah.
Man, the fact that I mean, there's so many things in this movie that happened, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, the fact that Patrick Wilson or Raoul or whatever, when he goes to rescue Christine, he's riding bareback on a whole. I'm like, like, it's just so random to me. And then, oh man, after, this was probably one of my favorite moments in the whole movie, after Raoul like saves Christine and they ride off on this horse into the distance, and the Phantom has this whole thing where he like runs up to this statue and stands there and is like, I don't remember what the song is.
You will curse the day you did not do. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So good. Okay, so I will say though, also, there are some good shots in this movie. But the issue is that they go on for too long. So it's like when Christine first gets to this graveyard, I'm like, oh wow, it's really beautiful. The snow is falling. The lighting is this really interesting, like, romantic yet eerie, haunting sort of blue. And that's, it's really cool seeing the snowflakes fall on these stones. I'm like, okay, and then we're just gonna walk through this for 5 minutes,
trudging through.
We're still here. Like,
yep, and like
okay.
she's not at least at this point in her life, or as she's been directed, she's not a particularly compelling performer. So there's some actors where you're just like, just watching them sing a song is riveting.
Fantasia,
but no,
in The Color Purple.
Sure,
yeah.
I will say, I mean, the production design and the costume design in this movie, I think, is legitimately incredible, and I really do love it. Like the cemetery, the like wintry gothic vibes, and everything's kind of, there's all these massive statues and angels and crypts and things like that. I love it. It looks so cool.
I think
it's great.
This movie is just high camp. It's just
it
high,
is.
Like every
it
aspect
is.
of it. Every aspect of this movie is high camp.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily an insult, but it's just
yeah, like that's what it is. That's
yeah.
what makes it so enjoyable.
I don't know
and
if that's what they
also where some of the
intended
problems
it to
come
be,
from.
but that's
yeah.
what it is.
Because I mean, like the original musical, it's melodrama, and I don't say that as like a bad thing. Like that's what the genre is. It's melodrama. It's extremely, these high emotional swings. It's intense, and that's what makes it so engaging. That's what people love about it. And this movie takes it and kind of like just adds that camp factor, and yeah.
It definitely, I wonder what this movie would have looked like had Moulin Rouge never been made, Yeah.
But
so I will say, since we're talking about performances,
sure.
So first of all, I really hate, I don't know, I feel like it's hard for me to say I hate or the performances, because the only performance that I straight up don't like is Gerard Butler's performance, because I think he just does a bad job. Whereas everyone else, I'm like, how much do you really have to work with here? I don't know. But the characters of Andre and Fermin, I just, the singing is so horrendous to me. Like, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the guy who plays Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall in
Kieran Hines.
Yes.
This was my introduction to Kieran Hines and Simon Callow.
His singing is offensive to me. I was like, why?
I kind of love them, but in a like,
it reminded me of
go ahead.
like Helena Bonham Carter and Sacha Baron Cohen in Les Mis, of how like neither of them are very good singers, but they're like the comedic relief, and so they come in and sing these little songs to carry it forward, and it works. But this, it's like Simon Callow, I can kind of get it, but with the other guy, I'm like, you are not even good enough to, like, no. You should not be doing this.
I kind of love them, but it in a very like you say, like they're the comedic relief characters who are kind of there to kind of break things up. Plus, I just have so much residual love for them in other things, Like I adore Kieran Hines. He's not a great singer.
I don't think he's a bad actor in this. I like his casting in terms of the role for the acting and the quirkiness and the funniness. But the singing is just
it's not great.
Not good at all.
Yeah. But like there are so many, I mean, there's the supporting cast is so stacked. Like you've got Minnie Driver, who I also adore.
She
and
gives
I
the best performance in this movie, in my
opinion. She's great.
Yeah.
And I think it helps that she's being dubbed. Like she doesn't have to worry about
she was dubbed?
producing. I'm pretty sure, yeah. She can sing, but her voice is very different. Like they got a legit opera singer to dub her.
Wait.
Yes.
Can I also say, this happens in movies, and you and I talk about this, because it happens in different ways, but sometimes movies try to establish things. It's like, I get the concept, but it does not work in this movie because that's not what's happening here. Kind of like how, we've talked about this many times. In Cabaret, it's like, so we're supposed to believe that Liza Minnelli is like some performer. That
a bad singer?
Like, no, that's just, I understand the point in the story, but like it doesn't work because of who Liza Minnelli is. And I feel like in this movie, this whole idea that Christine shows up and her voice is like so much better, and not that her voice is bad. I don't think that she's a bad singer. I think she's just not opera.
She's I've seen her described. I think this was a shout out to Lindsay Ellis, the video essayist who is the preeminent scholar on Phantom of the Opera. I think she described her once as like the most talented girl in your high school chorus or something like that.
She's not a bad singer. She's not
a bad singer. She's very good, but
trained in opera singing is a very specific type of singing.
Yes.
And
she's not like, I mean, she's doing opera, but I don't know. You need to be able to believe Christine is on another level, you know?
Well, that's what I mean. Like,
I don't believe it.
It's laughable to me that she starts singing and everyone's like, oh, the music.
Yeah. Well, it also like, because she's not really doing very operatic singing too, which I actually find kind of interesting in this movie, is that they sort of code opera as like cringeworthy and gross. Like Carlotta, who's being sung by a legitimate opera singer, and I'm sure she's maybe like exaggerating a little bit for the character, but every time she opens her mouth, everyone's like putting earplugs in. Whereas when Christine sings, which is a much more kind of straight, pure, like not as ornamental tone, everyone's
it's like a child.
Oh my gosh.
It's like a 5-year-old singing a lullaby.
Yeah, it's like it's not really that operatic. Whereas, again, I keep bringing it up, but like the Royal Opera performance or any other performance of the Phantom of the Opera, the woman playing Christine is doing a more operatic performance of Think of Me. But it's like, I mean, with the Sierra Boggess performance, she's so alive when she is performing. She's charming, she's expressive. You believe that Christine would become an instant star in a way that like Emmy Rossum just kind of standing there with their big eyes, like just kind of not moving and singing. I don't believe it. I just don't.
I just don't think she feels like someone who was cast and then didn't really have any help. It was just like okay, good luck. And I feel like there are some actors who, when they're young, they can just do it, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also some young actors that like need a little bit of guidance. And I feel like she was someone who, granted, I'm judging all of this based off of just seeing her performance in the movie. I don't know anything about what happened behind the scenes, but I feel like she's someone who she was up to the challenge, but she needed help and she didn't have it, because my first exposure to her was in The Day After Tomorrow, which did not come out that much longer after this movie. And I think her performance in that movie is actually quite good. Yeah. So I think she just
I've seen her in I definitely, as I emphasize how much I dislike the Christine performance, I want to emphasize I think Emmy Rossum is a very talented actress, and I've seen her in many things that I really enjoy. I think she's really good. I don't blame this. Put this on her. She was young, and I don't think the direction was there to support her in the way that it needed to be.
I mean, the whole movie rests on her. Like, that's a big weight to carry, you know? So, whereas, like, I don't, anyway, I'm not going to continue that train of thought, but yeah.
Any other performances that we want to talk about? What are your thoughts on Patrick Wilson as Raoul? Anything else to add?
Pretty indifferent. I just thought his character was very blah. So
like, he's the most talented Broadway singer out of all of them.
Oh, I mean, his singing was very good.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, but he's got nothing to do, nothing to work off of.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like even in the story of just the Phantom of the Opera in general, I'm just not someone who's like, oh, the romantic man who, you know, sees me for who I really like. That's not. I'm just like,
Raoul is always going to be the bland alternative to the Phantom. Like, by the nature of the role. Yeah, he's the nice, safe guy. Yeah,
which, like, he is a nice person and he does seem to genuinely like her. But am I interested in that? No. Also, is his hair terrible in this movie? Yes.
It's so bad. I really feel like, again, with them just trying to make the Phantom as sexy as possible, they just gave Raoul like the worst haircut, because they're like, we cannot make this man seem like a viable alternative.
Middle part. Yes. Give me more middle part.
A little bit of curl at the edges. Yeah.
I did really like the character of Meg in this. I really was hoping to have more of her.
Yes. I was a little bit obsessed with Meg when I was a kid. Like, Meg was who I wanted to be.
It felt like they were really trying to set up their friendship in the beginning to become something more. Because, like, they really said it, you know, in the beginning, it's like she's telling her about her father and how, you know, she was brought to this place and she was raised here. It really seemed like, oh, these women are establishing a relationship. Like, Meg kind of discovers that there's a tunnel to go down there. And then it's like, what happens to this? Nothing.
Yeah.
They really,
she shows up at the end with some really cool pants and
that's it.
finds the mask. And yeah, that's it.
So that was a disappointment.
Yeah, it was. I really do I loved Meg in this movie. Are you aware of the terrible sequel musical to The Phantom of the Opera in which Meg plays a very prominent role?
Is it like a sequel to this movie specifically, or just
to the musical?
Oh,
to the stage. Like Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote a sequel musical
yes.
called Love Never Dies.
Yes, I've never listened to it because everyone that I know who is a musical theater person, they all said it was terrible and told me not to listen to it. So I did.
It is so terrible. There are some songs that honestly are kind of bangers because they're written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, but the plot is like the worst fan fiction that you've ever.
Is it a prequel?
It's a sequel. No,
sequel.
It's like 10 years later. Raoul is now a drunk who gambles all the time, and Christine's regretting that she married him, and but it turns out she and the Phantom slept together, and now she has a son who's the Phantom's son. It is so bad.
Is there a monkey in it? Is there a monkey toy?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Because
he's like the Phantom is now
it's not tied into this story.
The Phantom now owns a carnival. He's like a Coney Island carnival barker. So anyway, the reason that I brought this up is because Meg basically turns out to be the villain of the sequel, where she's like obsessed with the Phantom and jealous of Christine, who has all the Phantom's attention, and so she basically goes insane at the end and shoots Christine, and that's how the movie ends.
This sounds really dumb.
Spoiler alert for No Love Never Dies. It is so dumb. I definitely recommend watching the pro shot version on YouTube if you can, because it's so bonkers. Anyway, that's not this movie.
No.
Anyway, slandering of my girl Meg.
Yeah. I did like seeing Mr. Gibbs in this movie. That was nice.
Yeah.
Little unexpected
I know. I almost
surprise.
didn't recognize him at first. Yeah.
Yeah.
The extremely creepy stagehand.
Okay. Also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That scene of them above the performance when the Phantom's like chasing him around and they're running on these I'm like, first of all, the choreography is terrible. Like I can't describe it on the podcast, but you know, the Phantom just kind of like shifting from side to side, trying to which way are you gonna go? And then it's like
it's like when you get caught on the sidewalk with a person, you're like, you both try to go left and you both try to go right.
But it's like they're on separate it's just the way that that's choreographed and the way that the set pieces are designed there, it doesn't make sense that the Phantom catches him, and the way it's shot is I hated that so much. It was so bad. Everything about it was bad. The choreography, the way it was shot, all of it, because you get this sense that I don't know. I feel like the movie was trying to communicate oh man, the Phantom is dangerous. He's going to kill this guy. And then he literally drops him from the ceiling and he hangs to death. But I'm like, this is funny to me. This is hilarious. This.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's not what the movie is trying to communicate.
Yeah. Well, again, with the elements of camp, a choice that they make throughout this movie, which is interesting and I don't think works, is just to make the Phantom so much more present, where in the musical, you're constantly seeing the effects of the Phantom, or his voice will suddenly drop in from above, or someone will show up dead, but you don't see the Phantom actually doing it. You don't see the Phantom going up to Carlotta's little tray of all of the things she needs and switching out her little spray bottle thingy.
No.
But you see that in this movie, and so you're just the mystery of the Phantom is diminished, because you're just seeing him sneaking along and running around the catacombs and whatnot. And I don't love it.
The fact that there's this door in the dome at the top of this theater that apparently no one else has ever seen or tried to walk through in the however much time this theater has existed. Clearly the Phantom is coming in and out of that place. No one's ever Like what? Like,
kind of made me think of in the third season of Only Murders in the Building, they're putting on a Broadway show, and they're at one point they reveal that there's a guy who's been living in the attic of this like theater for like 10 years. Kind of made me think about that.
kind of like in Community, how Chang's been living in the ceiling.
Oh, yeah, in the vents. Yeah,
In the
exactly.
vents. Man,
What if the Phantom was just like stripped down to his skivvies and like oiling himself up so that he could fit through the vents?
oh, I mean, we don't know that he doesn't do that.
He might.
He might. I would not be surprised.
Ugh, I don't
His
want that
hair is
visual in my
greasy
head.
enough.
No, thank you. Yeah, it is so crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, other performances that we want to talk about, or other things in general.
I feel like you should take it away, because at this point I'm like, I don't really have.
Okay.
I found it to be interesting when the
Mhm.
movie first started. I was like, oh, this is a really interesting like vibe of this 1919. It looks like it was shot on film,
the framing
like,
device.
and I was like, I
Mhm.
don't remember this. Where is this going? It doesn't really make sense to me. By the end, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But I did think that like visually it was very interesting. So that kind of
Yeah.
shocked me right out the gate. I was like, I did not remember this, but it looks really freaking cool.
Yeah, I was really frustrated by this framing device this time around. I don't know why it's there
Well,
particularly.
that's what I mean. Like,
the
it doesn't make sense to me.
No, I mean all it is like, well, Raoul and Christine lived a long life and now she's dead and Raoul is sad. And I guess
But
the Phantom
monkey's
is never
still
forgotten her.
there.
The monkey's still there. The Phantom's still lurking around. Like, okay, cool. Like, there's so many times that the action cuts back to Raoul just like driving around in his carriage, and he'll see like a horse galloping, and he's just like, oh, I'm sad. And you're
Yeah.
just like, what does this have to do with anything? Why are
So
we
many
doing this?
shots of him just like staring longingly at nothing.
Mhm.
Okay.
But I will say, like you said, the visuals, especially at the beginning, are very cool.
So
I think the
cool.
black and white cinematography is pretty good, and the shot of them raising the chandelier and
Mhm.
all the time being stripped away, you know, very like the beginning of Titanic.
Exactly.
And the electric guitar playing the riff, like, it's really awesome. I gotta say, I always get really excited whenever that happens.
I thought
think
it
it's
was-
legitimately really cool.
I found it to be an interesting choice that like 1919, I think it's 1919.
Yeah, it's like 50 years later.
Yeah, like
ish.
1919 is black and white, and then the flashback, which is actually back in time, is in color. I thought that was an
Yeah.
interesting decision.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
film is not without certain
Choices are made. Yeah.
yeah.
Choices are being made.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, yeah. So I did want to go through kind of some of the musical numbers themselves. And just kind of like
Masquerade.
talk through them. Yeah. So the first one is Think of Me. I mean, we've already talked about that a little bit. I did just want to shout out, you know, no one's going to know what I'm talking about, but the dress that Christine is wearing, and specifically her hairstyle, where it's kind of like intricately braided and it has these beautiful little like diamond stars studded throughout her hair. It's a reference to this very famous portrait of the Austrian Empress Sissi. And no one's going to know what I'm talking about, but it always brings me joy. And it looks so pretty. So, yeah. Shout out to that.
I hope for the day when we will have a listener that can understand a reference like that. I wish that for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It'll
Listener,
make...
if you ever hear this and you understand that reference, please send us an email and
Email us at yourpickpod@gmail.com.
and we will arrange a friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts about Think of Me? I mean, I think we talked about that one fairly thoroughly. By the way, just the random cameo. So I guess the number after this is the one that Christine and Meg sing together. I love the random cameo of Ramin Karimloo in the like portrait playing Christine's father. I don't know if he had actually been in Phantom, like played the Phantom at this point, but you know, nice little prediction of what would come.
Mm-hmm.
Ramin Karimloo, for anyone who doesn't know, being like someone who played the Phantom for many years and is kind of, you know, extremely respected and well known for that role. Anyway, they sing the Angel of Music song where Christine is like, oh, I think this guy might be my father, ? Or maybe the Angel of Music that my father sent. It's not entirely vague. Just notable that, again, with my obsession with Meg, her alto voice is so gorgeous, and I love their harmonies together. So, anyway. Okay, so now we get to the actual, like, the Phantom of the Opera song, I guess, like the main one. Christine's in her dressing room.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh man, I love this song so much. I think it's also, maybe you disagree, but I think this is the song that works the best with Gerard Butler's voice. Because like I said, I do think he can hold a tune. And I think he has a very rock element to this voice, and the way that it's arranged with the guitar and the sort of synthesizers and everything. It's a very rock-ish remix, the arrangement. And I think his voice works pretty well with it. I love the like dreaminess of the visuals. All of a sudden this like smoke starts coming out of nowhere and she's sort of gliding forward.
Oh, I hate it.
Her voice is playing and she's not. It's so music video, like it's so ridiculous.
That's an insult to music videos.
They're going down the catacomb and there's like the Jacques Cocteau like arms with the candelabras that are moving for some reason, and there's like a horse there. Why? No one knows.
Don't ask questions.
Like it's so, it's so, I don't know. It's just like, it's so ridiculous. It's so dreamlike, which I kind of love about it. It's very surreal. It's very, I don't know, I guess they're attempting to get you into her head of like, oh, she's hypnotized by the Phantom. But then that song ends with the specific note of direction that I hate, which is where she's singing all these high notes and the direction is doing nothing to support it or work with the notes. And yeah, anyway.
They don't need to do anything because she's just so angelic that it doesn't matter.
Oh my gosh. Well, then we go straight into Music of the Night, which is like the worst song.
Okay, so yes. I just had a thought.
Yes.
And maybe if I think about it too much, it'll fall apart and it's not actually legit. But I'm like, is this the musical version of Twilight? Just like this very blah girl who shows up that everyone just like thrusts their affections upon for reasons that are not understandable. And then she's like caught between this guy who's like
vaguely supernatural,
sexy, but also like creepy and protective and like not even borderline abusive. And then this other guy who she is like, in a healthier world, I would be with you, but alas, I feel conflicted. Haha. I don't know. Correlation? Connection? I
feel like there's some element of descendants there. This is, Twilight for an earlier generation. It's hitting the same, like, pushing the same buttons that Twilight would push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't think you're wrong.
That was just a thought that came to my brain.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have any thoughts about the Music of the Night sequence?
Other than it's probably my favorite song in the whole musical and my least favorite song in this movie. It is a crime. I do love this song though.
Yeah, so you love it as a song? Do you love like specific like the way it functions within the story? Like what is it that you love about it?
I love it musically. I really love it musically. I think, again, because, in the musical show, the Phantom is a lot more of, you don't see him. You don't interact with him as much. He's kind of more on the sidelines and behind the curtain, so if you will. And so I feel like the moments when we do really get to hear songs that are him singing, I feel like in most other iterations of Phantom of the Opera, the guy who is cast has such a powerful voice that the song just transports you somewhere. Like it lets your soul take you where you long to be.
Let your soul take flight. Yes.
It's such a moving song in so many ways. And so that's honestly why I love it, because it has this balance of like like powerful belting, but then like little falsetto, soft. It's such a great song. I think it's one of Andrew Lloyd Webber's best songs he's ever written.
Yeah, it's a great showcase for like the sort of range and expressiveness that an actor can deliver.
Yeah. So like, why the hell was Gerard Butler cast in this movie? Like, I don't understand. It still doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And like, I'm sorry, I keep harping on this, but like, if you watch other productions of this musical, the story that the two of those songs together, the Phantom of the Opera song and then the Music of the Night tell, is so coherent, where it's like he's bringing her down there kind of forcefully. She doesn't really want to go. She's frightened, but then he's able to draw this music out of her that she didn't know that she could produce. And then Music of the Night immediately follows. And it's this seductive song that's kind of tapping into like, well, what if you could sort of, reach into things that, you thought were forbidden, and like, promising all these depths and things that he's breaking down her defenses basically. And it's overwhelming, and that's why she faints. Whereas in this movie, it's just like, it's just like things happen, and she's just kind of standing there. It's like the Phantom's like, "Let me bring you down to my creepy lair," and she's like, "Okay." And then he's like, "Let me sing to you and press myself against you," and she's like, "Okay."
And then the next day he's like, "Well, I guess you must go back," and she's like, "Okay."
Yeah, like there's no rhyme or reason to why any of these things are happening. There's no conflict. There's no. I'm interested, but I know I shouldn't, there's nothing. There's just, anyway.
Yeah.
But
Music of the Night, great song.
Yes, I
great
agree.
Song.
Yeah, I love the way you've put that. I'd never really thought about it in those terms of like how difficult that song is and how much it shows. And yeah, it is a beautiful, beautiful song.
Yeah.
Let's see. So there's the whole note sequence where everyone's like, the Phantom has been sending people notes and they're all freaking out. And which, by the way, Meg is there and she's wearing this outfit that looks exactly like the Degas ballet dancer statue, which shout out again to the costume designer. But like, then we go into the prima donna sequence, and honestly, I kind of think that sequence rules. I love the way it escalates. I love like how much of the opera house we get to see, and all the like the things that they do to like placate the prima donna, and like her ridiculous costume, and just the blocking. I think some of it is pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. I really love the prima donna number.
Geneva, you and I need to watch this movie together. I feel like that'd be a fun time.
It would be great.
That'd be so fun.
All right, it's date.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's see. We have oh my gosh. That musical where the Phantom's like, "Oh yeah, Carlotta should be playing the page boy and Christine the Countess." And they're like, "No, we're not going to do that." And then all hell breaks loose. Which, can I say, I feel like one of the things I love about this movie is that it taps into some of what I love about Amadeus, which is just, I love seeing old-fashioned like operas being staged and how like ridiculous and artificial but also really fascinating they are. Like, yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah,
like everyone's in the most face paint that you could possibly be in, and there's like 10 people on stage at any given moment. Let's see. Yeah, so there's that whole sequence. Oh, yeah. And so, what's his face? Bouquet, Kevin McNally, he gets killed. Everyone freaks out. So Christine and Raoul go up to the roof and they sing All I Ask of You. All I Ask of You is also a really beautiful song that is just, it's gorgeous. And in context, it's such a beautiful, like, love song. And it's so flat here because they are so boring and they have no chemistry. And the stupid movie keeps cutting to the Phantom like hiding there, and it's like, no, let us focus on Christine and Raoul being in the moment, and then the Phantom can pop up. But no, it just keeps cutting to him looking kind of sad. Anyway, any other thoughts on All I Ask of You?
No, I mean, I agree. There's just choices in this movie that I'm like, I would watch it and I would just kind of be present in the moment. And then after a few seconds, I'd be like, wow, this is a really long take, like, and not long take in terms of, oh, we're moving around and we're not cutting. It's like, no, we're staying still and we're just holding it. And we're just gonna hold it, and we're just gonna. And this was another one of those scenes where I was like, oh, that's an interesting shot of him hiding behind the statue. Oh, we're still here. So we're still here, and then we cut away from it. It's like, oh, cool. Oh, now we're on the other side of the statue now. Oh, okay.
Cool,
like,
cool.
Cool.
Yeah. I agree.
I love the production design though. It looks great.
Yeah, the roof of the opera house, very cool.
The lighting in this movie is very good. The lighting's very good.
Yeah, I agree. During Music of the Night, I especially noted the all the glistening light around the room that's reflecting off of the water. I wonder
how many safety meetings they had to have before lighting all those candles and bringing cameras and actors on set.
Yeah.
Probably had so many safety meetings.
And they have all the candles that are like coming up from the water still lit.
Like they probably had some crazy ventilation in there. And oh my gosh, can you imagine being I wonder how many on-set dressers they had to like run in and replace the candles when they started melting because they were burning and rolling for too long.
Can you get like special candles that look like candles from a distance but are actually electric?
I mean, you can, but they
Probably
don't necessarily look that real. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to actually light all those.
Yeah. I mean, I don't actually know how it was made, but I feel like given that this is 2004, it probably wasn't like CGI fire. So they looked like real candles to me.
Yeah.
So I just think about like when I've worked on things with candles and it's not even this many candles. It's like, Tatum, make sure you buy 200 of them because we don't know how many we're going to go through.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. What a day on set that must have been for those on-set dressers.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this movie in general would just be, it'd be a lot for any on-set dressers. Like any scene, there's just so much going on in the background. There's so much scattered around. Yeah.
Those are the people that deserve the recognition in this movie.
Yes.
Come
on. Speaking of so much happening in every frame, Masquerade. I kind of enjoy this number.
Oh,
honestly,
I was laughing.
I don't know.
I thought it was
strange.
So funny.
It's strange.
It was. I liked the costumes, but the choreography was whack.
Yeah. It's very stylized, I guess. It's a lot of voguing, a lot of fan work. I don't know why they're all in black.
Fan work though. It's just like open close, side open close, side.
I do. Isn't there a line where they talk about how like all these colors, everyone's there in different colors, but for some reason they're all in black and white. I don't know why. I do legitimately love the shot where it's like, it's just them dancing and it's a straight sort of level shot, and then the Phantom shows up and the guitar is playing, and then all of a sudden the camera tilts and everything. That was pretty cool. Even though the Phantom's missing his giant feathered hat.
What a sad day.
I know. Let's see. We've got some stuff that I think is incorporated actually from the book, where like Raoul will go after the Phantom and he'll get trapped in some sort of like mirrored like wall of, or like a grate that's going down. Like in the book, there's a lot of the Phantom has left random booby traps that murder people. Which I guess they decided to throw in to give Raoul something to do. Let's see. We've got Christine going to the grave site and singing Wish You Were Somehow Here Again. Wish You Were Somehow Here Again honestly might be my favorite song in Phantom of the Opera. It's really beautiful. It's great for soprano. Like I remember when I took voice lessons very briefly, this was one of the songs that I would practice and kind of use as a like a potential audition piece. It's really good for that. It's a really gorgeous song. And again, the production design of the cemetery looks amazing, but Emmy Rossum is just not doing anything. It really bothers me.
I mean, they also didn't tell her to do anything. They were like, just walk.
Yeah.
Just walk.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Keep walking.
No, I agree.
Just keep walking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to like turn? Do you want me to? Nope. Just keep walking straight. Because, you know, part of me, I was watching that scene. I was like, am I being too critical? Because, you know, this is a musical where they do have to sing the whole song and the song is long and you have to get where you're going. So maybe like, but then I think about it. I'm like, you could have her interact with what's around her. Like she could, I'm not saying that this is a good idea, but it's like she could catch a snowflake. She could touch a grave. She could spin, like walk around and weave her way in and out. But it's like, nope, just walk straight. Walk straight for this entire song. The entire time that you're singing, just walk straight.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that just gives an idea of what she was, who knows? Maybe it was at a point where she had kept suggesting ideas and they kept shutting her down, that she was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to, I guess I'll just do what you tell me to do, because all of the stuff that's actually a good idea that I've suggested, you're shutting down. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
who's to know? And I really, like, there's so much loving focus on the graveyard. And again, with how this is directed as a musical, there's no attention paid to let's let the editing and the placement of the camera flow from what the music is doing. It's very much like, we're going to film a bunch of shots that look pretty, and then we're going to cut them together later, and then we'll lay the soundtrack on top of it. And these three things will not be done in conjunction with each other.
You made me think of this. You made me think of this when you kind of just brought up the graveyard in that way. But I remember at the end of this song when Raoul shows up or whatever, and he basically says to Christine, he's like, he's not your father. And I was like, oh,
I should hope not.
I was like, oh, is that her relationship to the Phantom at this point? Like, what is
it's
that
so unclear?
Like,
it's so unclear
because I had no idea why she was. I'm like, is she in love with him? Is she scared of him? Is she just completely a zombie and is being controlled? Is she, you know? But then he shows up and he's like, he's not your father. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess that's supposed to be the motivation here. Like, I don't know. Which maybe if they'd established that, there could have been some cool metaphor with like, oh, she's in a graveyard and, you know, like maybe her I don't know. Like, she thinks that the Phantom is her father, and that's why he's residing here in this place. And like, there's little, I'm not even saying that would be a good idea, because it would be cheesy as heck, but like, at least it's something.
It's
like,
something. Something. Well, I remember, because like the scene right after this is when Raoul is working with the owners to plot this trap for the Phantom, and Christine is kind of the bait. And Christine has that moment where she's like, please don't make me do this. I don't want to do this. I'm really afraid that he's actually going to take me and I'm going to be trapped for good. And in the film, she's just like, oh no, I'm kind of scared about that. Don't really have deep feelings about it. I'm just going to express my general discontent. But when I saw like a stage version of it for the first time, Christine's like freaking out at that moment. She is like, please do not make me do this. I am so terrified. I'm going to lose myself, lose my life. I might lose you. Like there's emotion. There's a sense of like, I am afraid of the Phantom and what that might do, instead of this just sort of general like, I don't know. Don't feel great about it. But like, it's just the contrast is just night and day. And it, you know, you lose so much of where Christine is mentally, emotionally at this moment because of the way that these scenes are being played.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. One tiny little moment, which is like the addition of the sword fight between Raoul and the Phantom.
You never gave me your thoughts on this, because this was painful for me to watch.
I wasn't really paying attention to the choreography too much.
How dare you.
I don't disagree that it's pretty badly edited, because I think the editing in this movie overall is not good.
Well, you can't even see what's happening. Very clearly, they were like, well, we didn't put in any effort into the choreography. Either they didn't bother choreographing it, so they didn't have anything to shoot, or the choreography was so bad that they were like, well, we can't show any of it, so let's just cut from this thing to that thing to that.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't even tell what's happening.
Because, I agree. Where my mind was during this sword fight, at least this time around, was like, oh, it's nice that they gave like Raoul a nice like romantic hero moment because he doesn't get to do much in the movie. But then right away, it's like Christine, he wins the fight. Christine's like, no, don't. And they ride off. And then the Phantom's like, now let it be war upon you both. And I'm like, wait, why? He just let you go. Like, that was a nice thing that he did. And then at the end, he's complaining about how no one ever did anything nice for him. And it's like, no. They did. They let you go. Like, that's a nice thing.
Phantom's got trauma, Yeah.
Yeah. He's got trust
It's
issues.
hard to be a phantom locked in a dungeon.
It's hard to be a phantom. Okay, so now we get to the whole like Don Juan triumphant, the Phantom's creepy, rapey musical that is intended to entirely to trap Christine. It cracks me up so much how like in stage performances of it, the Phantom, like he goes out and he's covered fully in a cloak. All you can see is his hands. So it's somewhat believable that no one realizes who it is. Whereas he goes out in the film and it's like, no, he's an entirely different like size, height, like everything from the actor he's supposed to be impersonating. Somehow no one notices what's going on.
Yep.
It's so ridiculous.
I have nothing to tell you there.
Yeah, and Christine is just like I don't even know what's going on with her during this thing because it's like she recognizes it's the Phantom and she looks a little nervous, but then she's immediately into it. And Raoul's like, I feel so betrayed because she looks like she's into it. I'm just like, what is happening?
I
don't understand what's going on with any of these.
I didn't understand any of it.
Yeah, it's not good.
I don't understand Christine's motivations for anything in this movie, and not in a way that's good. Because like we've said, it could be something where it's like, oh, we don't know her motivations because she doesn't know her motivations. She, like she's got all these different emotions and she's pulling torn in one direction. She can't think straight because of this, that, and the other. Like that's really interesting. But here it's just like, I know we keep saying this, or I keep saying it, but I just don't understand. I don't understand.
Yeah. Like, you don't get any sense of who Christine is or what her emotional journey is if this is the only piece of media that you've seen. Like, there's so much connective tissue that is taken out. Let's see. Yeah, so basically we've reached the end. The whole like Christine pulls the mask off, he takes her down into the crypt, Raoul goes after her, the Phantom like very easily kind of like ties him up.
Yeah, but what?
Makes Christine I was kind of like every time.
Hold on.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. The concept of him like falling through this hole into this specific pool of water. He happened to be in the right place, and then now he's got this thing that's coming down. Of course there's a lever at the bottom that will help you escape.
Yes.
Like, why? That doesn't
the
make
Phantom
any
is like,
sense.
well, what if I get trapped in it? I need to have there be a way out.
If you get trapped in your own thing, you deserved
deserve to die.
It was absolutely insane to me. I was like, these stakes are so incredibly low because
we know he's not going to die.
It's like, oh, well, what if it's rusted shut? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
No, like, just no.
Yeah, no.
It's like, and you can tell that moment it's supposed to be intense and like suspenseful. And I'm
no, is he gonna die in this trap?
It's like, no, of course it's not.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Yeah, the whole like the three-way conversation that they're having where the Phantom's like, you must choose, and Raoul's like, don't choose me, choose yourself, and Christine's like, I hate you. It's so like, it just the imbalance in their voices, it just doesn't work. Every time the Gerard Butler and Patrick Wilson are singing together, it makes me laugh because it's just like it's really it's noticeable. The contrast is noticeable.
If you didn't notice it before, you will notice it now.
I also feel like, the Phantom, like she takes the mask off and it's like, look at my horrible scars, which are not really that bad, but then like as they're downstairs and like doing all the stuff, his face like looks actively more fine at every moment. Like every shot it seems to get a little better.
Right. You're actually right. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. It's so ridiculous. Anyway, but yeah. So we reached the end. Christine was finally like, "All right, I will kiss you and spend my life with you." And then he's like, "Okay, your kindness has changed me and now I will let you go." And they leave, and
which, like,
Meg shows
again,
up in like a really cool outfit.
It's a really interesting idea, that concept of like, your heart is cold and all of these things have happened to you, and then one kiss transform. Like, it's cheesy, but it's a good idea. Like, and
one moment of compassion. It's beautiful.
It could be executed in a way that is touching and convincing and all of those things. And here it's like, I don't buy it for a second. Like,
right.
No, like, you just changed your mind because you changed your mind. Like, I don't. Yeah.
Because the script told you to.
Yeah, because the script told you to.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So we've reached the end.
What have we learned?
That's the Phantom of the Opera. What have we learned? Don't recruit Joel Schumacher to direct your movie. I'm sure he's a very nice person.
Well, I actually felt while watching this, I feel like this is a lot more of a common sentiment that I'm having now. I don't know if it's my age or what, or it's my fear of one of my coworkers listening to this podcast or something. But I was watching this and I was like, I feel like I have no right to call movies bad at this point, because it's like, because I watch something like this, I'm like, this movie's bad. Could I make this? I don't know. Like, there is a very, very high possibility that I could never make a movie like this. And so I'm like, well, is it bad? Like, I mean, it's bad, but I feel like I don't have a right to say that it's bad, because it's a very high likelihood that I could never make anything as good or better. So I'm just like, I don't really know how to navigate this.
Sorry, I could never make.
I'm not just a person who's like on the sidelines, who's like, this is a bad movie and doesn't know what they're talking. It's like, I know, like, it's like I feel like I'm a lot more accountable to saying if a movie isn't bad, because I know what goes into making a movie good or bad. And so I'm like, oh, I feel like, I don't know. It's just like,
I understand that. Whereas I don't work in the industry, and I can just kind of very happy to sit on the sidelines and be like, I could never make a movie as good as or bad as that.
Yeah.
Still gonna make fun of it though.
Because the thing is like, I actually don't even know if I think Joel Schumacher is still alive. But it's like, theoretically, if Joel Schumacher was like, hey, do you want to come on the set of Phantom of the Opera and shadow me as a director? I'd be like, absolutely yes. Like, no question in my mind. So it's like,
sure, you'd learn some stuff.
I really say this is a bad movie if I would be honored to shadow the director and watch him do it?
And this is the thing too, is like, again, I do really love this movie. Even, as much as I make fun of it, there's so much that I really do love about it. And there's so much, I think, honestly, really good craft that goes into like a lot of the shots that I was looking at. I was like, these look so much better than 90% of movies that are coming out today. Like the lighting,
Geneva,
the cinematography,
you watch too many Netflix movies.
I avoid Netflix movies as much as possible because I hate the way that they look. But yeah, there's like, it's so much more visually interesting than a lot of things that are happening. Like so many choices are being made. So many things are being put on the screen. There's so many ideas. There's so many references. Like, it's maximalist is what it is. It's not necessarily good taste. It's not maximalist, like you said, in the way of that, like Moulin Rouge is, in a very like refined way, but it's interesting, and there's a lot of care that was clearly put into it. There's a lot of money that was spent, honestly. So yeah, like I it's not like they just sort of slapped this together and put it out. Like, there is effort that went into it, and a lot of it pays off. It looks really good in certain parts.
The art
there
department.
Things...
The art department is
Mhm.
what thrives here. The art department on a production is like the production design, the props, all of that is very, very
costumes,
well done
the
here.
makeup, the hair,
the costumes, the hair, the makeup, the lighting,
like, minus the Phantom's face.
Right. Well, I don't think it's that it's bad makeup. Like, it doesn't look...
Well, yeah, that's true, actually.
It looks real. It just doesn't look as garish as it's supposed to.
Yeah.
But
it was badly conceived, but it's well executed.
It's like everything else about it, I honestly think is executed at a very high level. It's just... And the thing is it's not even the script, because the script is the music.
It's just the musical,
fantastic. So it's like purely the direction and the cinematography, honestly. Like, everything else is great.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain script things where, like, I do think there are certain script things where it's like there are moments of exposition or character interactions that they cut out that probably would have helped. Or, were sort of shaved away to make way for other things that were not really necessary. So there are some scripting problems, but yeah, no, I agree. I
think the fault really is with the director. But the thing is, the director also helps coordinate all of the other things. So it's like, I don't understand what's happening here, I guess is what I'm saying. Which is probably why you and I both are able to love this movie so much, because it's not just like... It's not unbearable to watch, because it's not that bad. Like, it's there's a lot of things here that are to be appreciated and to be enjoyed. You
can't just say it's bad and leave it at that,
because it's not. Like,
it's bad in a way that makes you want to dig into it, because there's so much good alongside it.
Yeah, like it's not bad. It's camp.
Yeah.
Gerard Butler is bad. Gerard Butler is bad. Everything else is not bad. It's camp.
Well, speaking of the incredible art department, moving on to the awards that this film earned. So this film was nominated for 3 Oscars: cinematography, art design, and best original song for the song that plays over the... Yeah, it plays over the end credits as a song called Learn to Be Lonely.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that the song that plays over the end credits is actually sung by Minnie Driver. Like, that's her real voice.
Okay.
Which obviously she couldn't use in the movie itself. It's a really nice song, honestly. It's very different from the vibe of the rest of the movie. It's kind of like a more like, indie singer-songwriter type thing. It does not really match, but it's a nice song. Anyway, this movie was a hit at the time. I don't think
it should have been nominated for best cinematography. That's me.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask actually about your thoughts on the cinematography.
Oh, I mean, I think I've said I think it's bad. I don't like the cinematography in this movie really at all. But I was looking at I'm looking at it right now, just kind of all the nominees this year. This was a weak year for nominations, just kind of across the board. This was the year when everyone was like, Finding Neverland is nominated for Best Picture. So it was
a dark time.
It was a weaker year. So even looking at the best cinematography, so what won was The Aviator, but The Passion of the Christ is in there.
Okay.
A Very Long Engagement is in there. And then a movie called House of Flying Daggers, which I have not seen.
Oh,
looks like it might be a Japanese film?
Yeah, it's a I think it's a martial
Hong
arts
Kong, so
film.
That's China.
Yeah, I know the name, and I feel like I've seen some stills from it that are very very beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I feel like just in general, this was a weak year for a lot of things. So I guess that makes sense. But
yeah.
Although Geneva Spider-Man 2 did come out this year, so
that's right.
Did that
Why wasn't it nominated for
best cinematography? I don't know.
I mean, that's not the award that I would give it, but I would give it many other awards. So,
worst film of the year.
Best film of the year. Anyway, Phantom of the Opera. It was a box office hit at the time. Apparently made about $155 million worldwide.
Dang.
So, yeah, did well. I don't know that it was necessarily a top 10. I didn't see that, but yeah, it did well. And And in terms of the critical response, so Metacritic has it at 40. Rotten Tomatoes has it at 33%.
That sounds about right, to be honest.
Yeah. I wouldn't argue with those. I pulled 2 fairly short quotes. So the first is Richard Roper. He says, this guy is not the Phantom of the Opera. He's the fashionably scarred stud of the opera, and that just doesn't work. It just made me laugh. Anyway, Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian. He says, the guignol is alchemized into syrup, creating a film so lifeless and soulless it's almost scary, with actors who glide slowly around, warbling away in their silly outfits, as if being towed on roller skates. Lloyd Webber sees his Phantom as the star of a feel-good weepy, heartbreakingly imprisoned in his disability, bestowing the precious jewel of music on his sweet-natured ingenue.
That was great. I loved that.
I love that. I don't know that I would necessarily agree that the film is lifeless and soulless, because I think there is a lot of energy in certain ways, but then also I look at the Christine performance and I'm like, yeah, actors who glide slowly around, like,
yep,
I don't
as
know.
if being towed on roller skates.
Yeah. That sums it up pretty well. So,
can I,
anyway.
Just before we move on to our final thoughts,
Yes.
can I read my Letterboxd reviews that I
Yes.
liked? So
Please do.
There's a few of them here, but they're all pretty short. So the first one is, this is literally high camp. They vogue during masquerade. That's camp. So that's one. The other one had bills to pay. This is a 5-star movie because every single choice that was made by the characters, by the actors, by Joel Schumacher, by the makeup artists, by the casting directors makes absolutely zero sense. And I really have to respect the commitment everyone had towards making a movie in such a fashion.
That's really good.
Here's another one. At last, a movie for me, a sexually repressed hermit who can't sing and fucking loves candles. Okay, here's another one. The Phantom swinging his cape around at every opportunity is so dramatic. Good for him.
Nice.
This one
I love Letterboxd.
This one is just kind of the Phantom of the Opera in general, not just this movie, but what Zero Pussy does to a motherfucker. Yep. And then this is one of my favorite ones. Living in a basement demanding 20,000 pounds a month for doing nothing is the kind of life I aspire to have.
Striking fear in the hearts of your enemies.
So yeah, those were some of my favorites.
Which when they were like 20,000 francs a month, I was like, how much is that in USD?
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of money.
Adjusted
what does
for
he do with
inflation.
it? How much does he need to spend on candles every month?
He invested in making more booby traps.
Apparently.
Yep.
He's got whole construction crews down there.
Who do you think made all those paths and tunnels down there?
Yeah, they didn't exist when he first got there.
Nope.
He made all of that.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So
who did buy
final
all of
thoughts.
those candles? Who designed that space?
What I want to know is is he having Madame Giry run to the grocery store for him once a week? Is he going out by himself and buying these things?
That's the movie I want to see.
That's the
sequel I want to see.
I feel like we are 18 months away from a 2-season series on Hulu about how the Phantom of the Opera has an army of little urchins who help him solve mysteries or something like that.
Let's do it.
And yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
My check just arrived in the mail. I just sold that concept to Netflix for $8 million.
Well, I'm currently working on The Bear, so I will go to my producer tomorrow and say hey, so my friend had this idea. Can I pitch it to you?
Can I pitch it to you? He's like, where do I sign the checks? All right. Final thoughts. I love this movie. It's so bad, but I love it so much. I can't really say much more. Just, yeah, it's a great time. I highly recommend, if you've not seen it already, watch it. I wouldn't recommend watching it as your first exposure to the Phantom musical. Watch a good version of the Phantom musical first, so you know what it's supposed to be like. But then come back to this and settle in.
You'll be able to
Pour yourself a
appreciate
glass of
this
wine.
one more knowing
Yes.
what it's being compared to, I feel like.
Exactly. Yes. But yeah, sit back, pour yourself a glass of wine. Just have a great time.
It's a great time. Yeah. I'm really glad you made me watch this movie again because I never would have watched it again, but I'm so glad I did.
Thank you.
Because now I want to watch it like every year for the rest of my life. So,
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should.
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me rant about Phantom of the Opera.
Bum, 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 bum.
Playing a sick guitar riff. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at yourpigpod@gmail.com. Our theme song was composed by Joel Rushton, and our podcast graphic was designed by Kara Shin. If you like this show and want to hear more, please rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're excited to have you on this journey with us. Until next time.
Me before I started The Sound of Music, like knowing you're about to start singing, it's just you gotta just jump right in.
Oh, oh my gosh, gotta commit. Stop laughing.
Sorry.